and welcome to Reviews, and today we're doing another Hong Kong content review, diving back into the world of Internal Affairs from the Criterion Trilogy box set, featuring all three films and brand new 4K edition scans, plus lots of archive interviews and a booklet. Really nice snazzy edition from Criterion. Really blown away by the 4K transfer from the second entry and this one, Internal Affairs 2, really fantastic 4K transfer. And with this one, I was a bit skeptical. I watched the first entry, absolutely loved it. I thought it was a very unique, complex, fun cat and mouse chase kind of thriller, two fantastic leading performances, a really tight film, which I can see what they did a remake for with The Departed. Both films are covered on the channel. Satisfied with both films for different reasons. I thought the original was an absolutely fantastic movie, great performances, great intense action set pieces, really kind of suspenseful, really good use of music, and kind of great acting performances, a really good acting film. And I was really satisfied overall with the conclusion, despite being a little darker than the remake. I was curious to see why there were two more movies. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't see any trailers. I didn't know much about the initial two more entries. I thought the second film was an actual sequel, but it turns out to be a prequel. And I gotta say, diving into Internal Affairs 2, that I was absolutely fucking mind blown. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Internal Affairs 2 is better than the first one. Wow, yeah. Let's not mess around, let's dive into this review straight away. Let's talk about Internal Affairs 2. Internal Affairs 2 was released in 2003 with returning directors Andy Lau and Alan Mack, who did the first entry, and also did the third one, also Internal Affairs 3, also released in 2003. So they did 3 movies in the span of a couple of years, a very big task ahead of them, obviously with a massive, huge international success from Internal Affairs, the first entry, being quite dominating in the box office and being just a kind of a launch career for a lot of kind of actors, and also putting a lot of other actors on the map in terms of best actors and kind of thing. These films are definitely all the best in terms of performances. These are kind of raising the bar in terms of what kind of a police procedural kind of crime thriller movie can be, if handled correctly, if under the right director, under the right script, with the right intentions behind it, you can make a phenomenal movie. And going into this one, I didn't know what to expect. And as mentioned in my intro, I was absolutely fucking mind blown by how good this film was. This film is a prequel movie. That by itself is risky, because what are your intentions when making a prequel? Are you just doing a kind of an easy kind of shoehorn in between kind of movie leading up to the events of the first one? Are you going to bring back all the cast from the first one movie and just kind of, you know, expand upon a plot line that was mentioned briefly once maybe, and kind of do as a whole movie? You know, that's kind of the easy traditional kind of prequel route that a lot of kind of other movies have done. But no, this film goes a bit extra. It goes the extra mile on this one. If Internal Affairs 1 was Breaking Bad, Internal Affairs 2 is the Better Call Saul of prequels. And if you've seen both of those shows, you know exactly what I mean by that, because I think Better Call Saul is a better show than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is the beast, it is the kind of fast-paced, it is the aggressive kind of, you know, gangster that basically is going to rip it all apart, destroy everything in his wake. A really interesting 5-season arc journey, where Better Call Saul takes the characters that we know and love and expands them, explores them in different ways, deep dives into their kind of past, and also does different storylines, brings in new characters, dives into a much richer world, but we know the ultimate outcome is going to be. Obviously, you need to know the events of the first movie to know this one, but at the same time, it is very much a self-contained movie in its own right, and I think it is a phenomenal film. This is a much more straightforward thriller, but in the best possible way, to the highest absolute standard. And it is so clever. Deep dive into a prequel movie that is basically set within a 10-year kind of marker. The first part of this film is set within 1991, then I think it jumps to 1995, and then it kind of ends with 1997, 1998, 3 time periods that these kind of characters are in, and it utilizes some strengths from the first movie that I was not expecting. It's kind of genius also. It takes the actors that play the younger versions of Andy Lau and Tony Leung Wong's character in the first movie, from the kind of opening montage sequence where they're kind of in the police academy and they kind of start their path in their kind of the direction they're going to go into. Obviously, one being an undercover cop within kind of Sam's organization from the first one, and the other one's going more deeper into kind of the police units kind of thing, eventually reaching into internal affairs and being the kind of the intel guy. It takes advantage of what's already been set up in the first movie in terms of those actors already playing the younger versions of those characters and bringing them on into this one. I gotta say, the performances from these two young actors at the time were absolutely phenomenal. They really played them really well, and they deep dived a bit more into their kind of personality that I wasn't really expecting. Get to know more about them as the film goes along, but the initial focus isn't necessarily about them. Through getting involved in kind of a lot of the events that do play out in the film, I like the fact that kind of Terry Long's kind of character, the younger version of him in this film, is very much closer to the initial Triad boss because he's connected family-wise to them, and he has some kind of, you know, he wants to prove himself to be a cop. I am a cop and I'm going to get this done. And I like some of the initial dialogue because we know the ultimate outcome for that character. You got the younger version of Andy Lau's character from the first entry, and this one, he's definitely a lot more kind of creepy. He's definitely a lot more malicious. I would definitely say he's very much a bastard in this. Very intelligent, very charming, very kind of focused-minded person that's obviously managed to infiltrate the kind of organization so goddamn well, but he's also doing it for himself, and that is very much shown within the ultimate outcome that we know. And this one, he's got a crush on Sam's wife, Mary, who's kind of very much a dominant character in the film, with very much an important character, and kind of teaches him some kind of tricks and turns and introduces him to some music, and you know, there's this kind of power shift between who's the real power and who's behind the power a little bit. And she's very much like definitely a kind of tryout kind of gangster wife, and she's fully supportive of Sam and she wants him to succeed. And the fact that he's kind of falling for her, she's not reciprocating that back to him, definitely leads to some kind of interesting kind of outcomes the film goes, and makes him a proper bastard in this film. They are more observers of this kind of storyline that's going on. You've kind of got another kind of gangster character, another tryout family that is basically top dog, and you got this idea of the big four. They run everything within Hong Kong in terms of the drugs, the kind of human trafficking, all the weapons. They basically dominate every aspect of kind of, you know, Hong Kong at that point. And this idea of kind of a shifting kind of power dynamic, the kind of the boss of the Triad member has been assassinated, been killed by someone within the big four, and basically the son takes over, and you get these really unique sequences where he's basically playing it super fucking cool, super slick, almost like Gus in a sense. A lot of comparisons to the kind of Better Call Saul in this one, I do apologise, but it's a good analogy. So determined to get revenge and to get even, and this kind of idea of what comes around goes around. And it corrects a mistake that wasn't in the first entry. More character development, more downtime, more exploring this world, this rich kind of dirty kind of world of crime and kind of heroes and villains and cops and tryout gangster members, and this kind of internal struggle back and forth. What is the line between good and bad? And they really explore this with Andy Wong's character, which is some really kind of shady stuff in the film. The fact he has multiple kind of intelligent back and forth kind of conversations with Eric Singh's character Sam, which at this point is part of the Big Four, and he's just kind of a low member part of that organization. He kind of really kind of takes off in this film. I thought he was really fantastic. It was nice to see him outside of a more of a comedic role and doing something a bit more of a serious kind of gangster character. And this one, he is phenomenal. He is absolutely brilliant. Demonstrates his acting chops to the full extent, and I really like how clever they used him in the film, and the fact that he's kind of very low key during the early portion of the film, and that he really kind of steps up and he really gets involved in chaos of what's happening. And he's very clever, he's very smart. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about this movie, and it's almost like acting the movie Internal Affairs, everyone is bringing their A game, everyone is giving these incredible monologue sequences, like emotional breakdowns, kind of anger, kind of rage, much richer character driven storyline, and it's so well crafted, it's so well tightly executed. You've got a acting based movie. This is almost like a stage play in the way the film is crafted. You've got a brilliant 15 minute opening montage sequence from Anthony Wong's character, which returns back in this film. The action is very minuscule, it's very kind of specific, but when it happens, it's very effective, it's very intense, it's very exciting because the music, the fact when you get to those moments, it's so goddamn exciting. You're on the edge of my goddamn seat. Overall, Internal Affairs 2 is probably the best prequel I think I've ever seen of all the prequel movies, apart from a TV show, of course. This is absolutely phenomenal. This takes a much more bolder, much more character driven, much more straightforward narrative, but plays it like a stage play, plays it like an epic kind of Godfather tale of kind of morale with, you know, heroes and bad guys, and political stance with, you know, the Hong Kong dynamics happening at the time, with the kind of British forces leaving Hong Kong, and the idea of opportunity and the idea of people taking in power, alongside having our two mole characters on the first entry being spectators and being involved in the overall storyline, seeing how these characters come into power, see what kind of choices and the kind of the ambitions these characters have had in the early portion 10 years prior to the first entry. This is a self-contained movie, but also works so goddamn well with the first. What are your thoughts and opinions on Infernal Affairs 2, guys? Please comment down below. Do you think it's better than the first one? Do you think the first one's better than the second one? What are your thoughts on Infernal Affairs 3? Will this live up to the same level of excellence that the first two films have delivered? I don't know, third entry in the series, risky, but I am excited at the very same time to see where this all concludes and how this all finishes. So yeah, in the meantime, guys, time for reviews. Signing out.